And then he convinced himself, I don't know how, but he convinced himself that the SSN was a pedal boat and that he must need to go get the bike because the bike has pedals. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 661th episode.
Great start.
The Pokemon podcast. It's super effective. I'm your host, Steve, who has a fourth grade education. With me is Hannah.
I am here. I have been putting my computer science degree to use in the last 24 hours thinking about this episode.
Oh, we have an episode for y'all today. We got Bobby here.
Hello. I'm offended that you think people that are less than fourth grade education know that it's first and not one. I'm pretty sure my 5-year-old knows that it's first and not one.
Different people know different things, and that's okay as long as the intent is communicated.
Oh, there's intent, that's for sure. We have a real packed episode for y'all today. There's information about Pokemon Worlds, and if you plan on attending, I would not skip the first 10 minutes of this episode, because I'm sure no one read the page, and I have the information for the page. We will explain that to you. The DNA, Mr. DNA. I also, side note, I hate when people say Dina. It's just DNA. They're very clear about how to say their name. It's just DNA. It's not Dina. DNA came out with an update for trading. We will get to that, and then as long as the show goes on track, after that, we're going to be talking about Claude playing Pokemon. I promise if you don't know anything about that, we will explain it. And then after that, Pokemon GO's sale officially went through. Well, it's not official yet, but it has been officially announced that it will be official.
There you go.
And then if you are a Patreon subscriber or an Apple Podcast subscriber, our post show will just have some other stuff. Anime stuff and some TCG stuff that it's a tight episode. We had to move some stuff around, but if you want 2 hours, Patreon, 90 minutes free. Welcome to capitalism. Speaking of capitalism, capitalism is the money that you pay. Speaking of capitalism,
yeah.
Would you like to go to the World Championship? Because there's a lot of changes this year, and you should be aware of the changes. Now, this is exciting for a lot of reasons. Number one is a lot of our listeners are U.S. based, and the last couple years were London, Japan, specifically Yokohama, and then Hawaii. And I know Hawaii is America, but it is the farthest state from mainland America and probably the most expensive to get to.
Quite possibly.
True and true, I think. Yeah, or close
and probably,
to it. Yeah.
Probably some of the more expensive like hotels and stuff. Like it's just an expensive
I would
vacation.
expect so.
It's expensive. Yeah. I think things are more expensive, although, you know.
Cost of living is really high there.
Yeah.
New York, yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, New York is expensive, but you can get some pretty good deals in New York. I've gotten some deals.
Depending on the timing, I guess. Sure.
Not this year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I was looking at you
what
saying
I was
that.
saying. Yeah, that's what I was kind of.
Not this year. My flight to New York is twice as much as it was last year. Okay, so there's going to be another raffle to get tickets. They started the raffle system in Yokohama, which makes sense because it's very easy to travel in Japan. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Pokemon started in Japan, so they like it a lot over there. So there is a raffle this year. You can sign up to be in the raffle until March 23rd. So if you want interests, or if you want to express that you're going, even if you're on the fence, maybe you don't even know if you want to go, you still need to sign up for the raffle. Because
if you want to get the opportunity to get a ticket, you need to sign up.
Yeah.
And you need to sign up before the 23rd. That'll be in our show notes. All the links to that. So if you don't know where to go, I'll put the link in the show notes. You have from now until March 23rd, 11:59 PDT, to sign up. There are 2 types of passes you can get: either a multi-day pass, which is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or a single-day pass. These passes are not transferable, so you cannot. They say you cannot give it to a friend. I don't know. I don't know if they're putting your name on it. I don't know how the pickup works. They don't explain that. But the prices are different. Registration for a multi-day spectator pass is $99, and the registration for a single-day pass is $39. They're saying that non-refundable, non-transferable. They say that for like everything, like PAX. That doesn't. I'm not encouraging you to sell your badge. I'm just saying if you go to a PAX, there are people selling PAX badges outside, and they say that they're not transferable, but they don't have your name on it. I don't know if these will not have a name or an email or anything. I don't know. I'm just telling you, if you're planning on spending $100, maybe plan on spending $100. Every adult must register with their own account. Up to 4 youth passes may be purchased and added to an adult registration. Children under 5 do not require a pass to attend and do not need to be registered in advance. Children under 5 do not receive any additional items. Arena seating for the final match is not guaranteed and will be available first come, first serve. We obviously know this is in the Anaheim Convention Center, so you could probably look up past events to see what the arena seating they're talking about is going to look like. I think, wasn't there just like a League of Legends or something recently that happened at that exact convention center?
Maybe. I have no idea.
So we're just, if you're a competitor, you already know what you're doing. We're just talking about spectators here. The first thing that stands out to me is the price increase. I remember going to both Nashville and DC Worlds. This was before COVID, and the cost of a 3-day pass was $14.
Was it really back then?
The 3-day pass was $14?
3-day pass was $14, and you got 3 booster packs to pretty much like redeem the cost. Because I remember I got the bad booster packs, and then everyone else got good booster packs.
Not everyone.
What, 2019? 2018?
2019.
2019 and
DC.
2018. Yeah, and 2018 was Nashville. Wow. And then when I went in 2011, 2010 or 2011, it was just free. There was no cost. You just show up.
That was San
also
Diego,
like,
right? Was that the San Diego one?
Yeah, it was San Diego, yeah. I don't remember London. I'm going to be completely transparent here. I didn't pay for my ticket for London, Yokohama, or Hawaii. But I also don't. I know those were not $99.
I mean, the spectator passes at regional events are what, 70, 60
Like
at this point?
I want to say 60 something.
No, to play is $60.
Okay.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
I thought the spectator ones were
Maybe spectator is 40?
something up there too.
I remember them being more than I expected.
Yeah, I remember trying to go to the Los Angeles one and looking at ticket prices, and I feel like it was like somewhere between 40 and 60. Because I wasn't playing. So
But yeah, I think 70 is the
according 6 months ago, they're
participant.
$15.
Really? Okay.
15? Oh.
Then it's just participating costs a lot more. All right.
Yes. $15
And now-
to spectate. Depending on the organization running it, it can be between like 60 to 80 to play. I haven't seen it be 40. Back in the day, it was 40, definitely.
But that was 15 was for like, because it's multi-day as well, right? With the regional stuff.
Wait, what is the question? Are you saying 15 is a day pass or 15 is a 3-day pass?
Yeah, was that day pass or a 3-day pass?
That I'm not sure of. I'm just looking at a Reddit thread from 6 months ago saying they're generally only $15 as opposed to the expensive badges to play.
Got it. Okay.
Got it.
So maybe they are 40 for 3 days and 15 for 1. I will say, though, if you are spectating a regionals, you only really need one day. There's not a lot to do
Yeah.
at a regionals.
The difference between a regionals and a worlds is huge. They're very
Yes.
different experiences.
And the difference between a regionals and a internationals and a worlds is also very different. Which I don't know the cost of a internationals either. Like, I don't know how much EUIC was. But as far as I know, those have not needed raffles yet. You can just go in and you can just buy a ticket. The other thing, I talked to Mr. Pokemon. I talked to Papa Pikachu. I said, what do you consider a youth pass to be? And they said anyone under 18. So a 17-year-old, 16-year-old. Those are youth. So if you're an adult, you can get up to 4 youths. The tricky thing here is if you are a parent with a significant other and you have 2 kids, you and your significant other both need to apply and both need to get picked for the raffle to go. You can't add another adult.
Yeah.
And I know that people are upset about this. I know also the Pokemon Company is aware that people are upset about this. But if you were to do a simple Google search of I needed a world ticket for Hawaii, you will find a Reddit thread with over 100 different people selling their tickets to Hawaii for $200 minimum. So even though Hawaii was on an island in the middle of the ocean, and it was very expensive to go to, tickets still sold out and people were still reselling tickets. So your alternative is scalpers get your tickets before you do.
Right.
I'm sure there will still be scalping. I don't know if scalpers will care as much because they have to register to get 1 ticket versus, I believe, for the last 3 years, when you got picked for the raffle, you could add up to 3 other adults. So that's what they were doing. They got picked for the raffle, they would add 4 tickets, and now they're selling 4 tickets.
Got it.
Which is probably more worth their time versus 1 ticket at a time.
Yeah, especially because selling the one that they bought for themselves might be a whole different process than selling one's add-on tickets that are for undetermined people.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a great system, but also we can't even find Pokemon cards right now. The scalpers are all over Pokemon as it is, so... Yeah. They're saying that you will be emailed the week of March 24th. Once you are emailed, you have 48 hours from the time the email was sent to register and pay for your pass. If an individual does not register and complete their purchase within their window, the passes will go to another person. So, it's not
a
great.
raffle.
Strict. Yeah.
It's a raffle to pay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if the increased cost of the passes and the limitation of the passes will help scalpers. Again, even like I knew people who had tickets booked to Japan. They had flights, they had hotels, and then they didn't get spectator passes.
Yep.
I know people who went to London because London did sell out, although it wasn't a raffle, but they thought that they could walk in and buy a pass and walk in, and they couldn't. And like I said, Hawaii was sold out, even though if you were to go on eBay at the time or Reddit or however you buy tickets, there was plenty of tickets for sale
Right.
because it sold out, but it was a lot of resellers. Yeah. I also, next year we know it's going to be in San Francisco, so maybe that's a better alternative for you. But I think Worlds is really cool. I think they've done a very good job in the last 3 years to make it feel like an actual event where even if you had no desire to watch the matches, there was still stuff to do. But we're just trying to give you as much information as possible because you have about a week to decide if you want to get into the raffle to then maybe go.
Yes, if you want to sign up for the raffle to get the ability to buy a ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if
But they are
you're
good in-person Pokemon events. Kind of like Go Fest.
Yes. And even if you don't get a ticket and maybe you live in Anaheim, there will still be things to do for free. Both Hawaii, actually London, Yokohama, and Honolulu all had free things to do. They had like the Pokemon Go thing. They had free areas you can go to. So if you don't care about battles, I would maybe just recommend the one-day pass to see what's happening, to do, like, they had a museum last year and stuff. But if you want the whole thing... Oh, also, before we transition, the Pokemon Center should be a completely different ticket / line.
Lottery.
Lottery,
No.
yes.
Okay.
So they don't say anything about Pokemon Center here, but for the last, again, 3 Worlds, even in Nashville, you did not need a spectator pass to go to the Pokemon Center. That is a whole different line you have to get into, or raffle that you have to get into. And yeah, you're just not going to be able to walk into the Pokemon Center. You're going to need a ticket at a time.
Right. And that is a raffle. You said that's not a raffle only for people who had gotten tickets, like spectator tickets prior. It would, in the past, it's been a raffle for anyone.
Yes. I think maybe they should change that to help with scalpers. Maybe at least the first 2 days, maybe only ticket holders. I don't know. Again, that's really weird. They have no problem selling out their stuff. I can tell you that much. There's no problem with the Pokemon Center being empty.
Yeah.
at the end of the day. Look, I like I said, I know the Pokemon Company is aware that this is not optimal. I think their main goal here is to stop people from scalping tickets. I don't know if this is the best solution, but I also don't know how many people they're allowing. Like, I don't know if like Hawaii was, 5,000 people. I know that's really low, and this is like 7,000 people. Like, I don't even know how many more people can come to this event per the size of the convention center, or how many seats they have for the stadium seating.
Right.
But good luck. May Arceus be on your side as you and your significant other both try to get tickets.
Yeah.
Pocket. TCG Pocket. Trade tokens.
Yes.
Look, I am not above myself to admit I was wrong.
Yes.
I did not think they would do anything. I thought they were going to just shove a bunch of tokens in our inventory and say, forget about it. I really think it was working too. Not to defend them, but I really do think it was working. The amount of tokens
people had just sort of given up because that's what we were given.
Yeah, but the amount of tokens they were given and people being like, yeah, this sucks. I think they could have maybe coasted it out. Unless, like, revenue on their end was like, oh, people are canceling. Because I did see that. I saw people were like, I'm canceling my premium. But Bobby was right.
Yes, it was.
Although I don't know if throwing out the entire system is like a fix.
I mean, I don't know if they realized before they implemented the tokens that they had the perfect system right there already implemented. Not perfect, but a better system right there already implemented. But at some point, it became very clear.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can read through it, but it is weird that, like, they've essentially turned it into what everybody thought it was going to be before they released trading. So I guess maybe they were like, this is the backup plan. Like, I wonder if they always thought, like, we could do it if, like, well, we're going to try this. And if it completely blows up in our face.
But why?
Like,
I don't know. But it blew up in their face. And now we're...
Yeah.
This is off the Pokemon forum. Garbage King, our lovely Garbage King, He's back again. He says, thank you for sharing your feedback in the trading feature of Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket. We continue to read your comments to investigate ways to improve. Today, we'd like to introduce the following updates implemented by the end of autumn. So, I don't know. Don't expect this until December 18th or something. The removal of trade tokens. Trade tokens will be completely removed, and players will no longer need them to exchange cards to obtain currency required for trading. Instead, trading cards of 3 diamond and 4 diamond and 1 star rarity will now require shine dust. When you open a booster pack, shine dust will automatically be earned if you obtain a card that is already registered in your card decks. Currently, shine dust is required to obtain flare, so we were looking into increasing the amount offered since it will be needed for trading. Altogether, this change should allow you to trade more cards than you could before the update. Trade tokens you currently own will be converted to shine dust when the item is removed from the game. There is no changes in how 1 diamond and 2 diamond rarity can be traded. Those are just free trades. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's pretty much the update.
Well, sorry, the 1 diamond and 2 diamonds still do take the hourglass, though. Or like it still does take the...
Yes.
Yeah,
they will still use
the
an
other
hourglass.
Currency, but not the second currency.
Yes, they didn't say anything about trade hourglasses. So ideally, you could only trade 5 cards in... How long does it take for an hourglass to replenish? 12 hours?
I think it's 24.
None of us have traded that much, apparently.
I've done 5 trades in a day, which was all 5 of my hourglasses, and then I had no one. I didn't even look at it because I was like, I had no one. I'm sure they're replenished now, but I didn't do any trades after that, so I didn't really think about it. Yeah, I don't know. I assume they refresh as fast as Wonder Pick hourglasses. I think it's 12 hours because I think you get 2 a day.
I've only traded like once a day when I've traded. I've done the few trades, but it's only been, one at a time, and then like 2 days later I trade something else. So it's always refilled by then.
This whatever, like, I think this is a good change, but it's hard to get excited. I'm going to be pessimistic. It's hard to be excited because we don't know the shine dust cost.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's probably going to be pretty expensive.
Which was my worry when we originally talked about this, is how much is the shine dust going to even cost? And we have no clue what they value that at. And we were talking about flare. That was our conversation with flare, because there are some flare. Wasn't there like a flare that's like 90,000 shine dust or something?
Yeah.
On Mewtwo?
Yeah.
The gold card
The
flare.
gold cards.
It's like the most expensive one.
I do think this is a better loop though, because you're opening packs for free, so you're getting free shine dust. So ideally, it should be better. I do wonder if they thought that introducing a new currency, this is my only like trying to logic out their logic, that they wanted shine dust to be for flare, and they were like, oh, people are saving it because they probably think it's for trading. And here's our new currency. Now feel free to use your shine dust for flare, and then no one was doing that.
And then nobody did,
Yeah.
because the flare's not good. Yeah, I mean,
that's right. Yeah, I agree.
I use the flare, but only for my one deck, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
It's not
I
great
think there
flare.
are a couple flares that are really cool,
Yeah.
but the majority
very
of flare is bleh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and you don't even like see them all the time, depending on the flare, anyways. So it's like, yeah, not that great. They should just have improved. They should improve that system along the way as well.
They should. I don't think they... Yeah, they absolutely should. I don't think they will, but...
No, but like, if they've got any time, they should improve the flare system at some point in the future.
I'm waiting for Garbage King to say, Flare update, the removal of Flare. We have noticed
They're not
trainers
going to
do
remove it entirely.
No, they're going to flip it. They're going to be like, with the removal of trade tokens, we now have flare tokens. No one will be as mad at that because no one uses it anyway.
That's probably true, actually.
I think Flare can be cool. It's just that a lot of the Flare is so boring. Or it doesn't like match the card sometimes.
Right.
I mean, it's tricky because, so in Marvel Snap, the way that Flare works is that you upgrade the card itself and it changes the background and the color of the card and the style of it. But because Pokemon cards are made so that the rarity is kind of what changes the style of the card, like there are gold cards, there are the cards with the rainbow borders. That's not what's happening with Flare. They have to do something different than that, which is why they have done animations when you put the card down in battle, or just sort of overlays of really boring stuff floating around on top of the card.
Yep. Not great.
So there's a little bit of reasoning as to why it's tricky, but it could be better. It could be much better.
They should hire one
A card
person.
could be on fire.
They should hire one person, and their only job is to custom Flare every card.
Even if they just had really good Flare that was type specific, that would probably help.
Yeah. I really don't like the swirl and then just like the fighting energy symbol just popped up off the fighting card. Like, I don't know. It's not. It's
even like the immersive cards have like worse Flare than some of the non-immersive cards. Which is like really, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then there's the like exclusive Flare that you can only get for a week on like specific cards, like the Mew or the Arcanine or the it Darkrai? Zapdos.
You've been sucked into that though.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, maybe it's much cooler because it's limited, and it's not.
No, it's just limited.
Yeah.
It's just limited. Overall, though, like people were, I think people were happy because they felt listened to, and that feels good.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are plenty of people that won't interact with this feature at all. I'm sure there were plenty of people that really wanted this feature to be something that they used. So overall, very, very good change. Although, see you in 7 months, I guess.
Yeah, it's odd that it's going to take as long. I mean, I guess they already had a roadmap along the way, right? And if they're fixing this, it's probably like, okay, we're going to get their next stuff out and then we'll get this fixed. So I understand giving that long runway for that reason, but at the same time, it's like,
wait,
what
did it say
It's March?
by the end of autumn or
Yeah, it says
in
by the end of autumn.
Okay, so it could be sooner.
Yeah, it could be sooner.
They could just be giving
instead of
themselves a
December.
lot of time to figure it out, and then maybe it doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
Potentially.
I did say that DNA loves currencies, and they open up Pokemon Masters. They sure do.
Yes.
It's part of the reason why there's not even like a specific thing I can point to in Masters to be like, this is hard to understand. It's just there's like an overwhelming amount of currencies.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, I don't even.
I feel like they're adding a new currency every few months.
Yeah. And I would not be surprised if more currencies come to this game. To me, it's shocking they're removing a currency.
So Backlash was that bad. I guess there was that much feedback that they were like, okay, this crowd isn't okay with our currency as much as the Masters crowd is.
Yeah. So I wonder how long they spent on the trade feature for them to then say it's going to take 7 to 8 months to remove this thing.
Well, you knew the trade feature was coming from the day one of the game. Like they had put it in the system, right? That you could trade, and then it had the coming soon thing. on it, so I'm assuming they were working on it.
I mean, I don't think that it has to do with the complexity of the feature itself. It has to do with the economy of the game. It has to do with how much things are going to cost. And I think that's probably where they have to do a bunch of calculations before they can change things.
Yeah, I mean, we speculated that they were worried about, like, we talked about how much money they made, right? They made $500 million in 3 months or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was before trading was even added. So I would speculate that they were worried that once trading came out, they would make less money because people would just trade. Mm-hmm. But I think if you look at let's just say, look at a couple YouTubers and their videos are like, I spent $4,000 to get all the gold cards, or I don't think trading, they probably thought, oh, trading's going to cut into our money. And then they realized, oh, it doesn't, like, these whales are still whaling. We're fine.
Well,
yeah,
people are still limited as to the cards that they can trade.
Yeah, people aren't spending $4,000 to get 1-star and 4 diamond cards, right? They're spending the $4,000 to get that gold Mewtwo or to get the immersive cards or things like that, you know?
Yeah.
That's what's taking up most of that money. As you know from collecting any TCG product, like, you can complete most of the set for a fairly, like, small amount of money, and then it's like the last 3 cards are what cost you like 75% of what you spent on the set.
Yes. Obviously, there's still accounts on eBay selling cards and stuff, and I'm sure they probably thought that was going to cut into their things. So there are probably 2 things that happened. One, they saw that, okay, we're still making plenty of money with trading out, and we're not worried about it, and let's just listen to the people who, because I think if you're spending $4,000, you probably don't need trading at all. You probably have.
Yeah.
You probably have all you need. I would hope. All right. Well, thank you, Garbage King. You are I don't know who you are at the Pokemon Company, but I would like to meet you.
Oh, they did have there's additional updates in that article.
Oh,
as well.
sorry. I was on the actual TCG post, right? Or on the Twitter post.
No, on that forums article.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
There's a bottom
feature. A feature will be added to allow you to share cards you're interested in trading via the in-game trading function. We hope that these changes.
Yeah.
We hope that these changes will make trading cards more accessible. I wonder if all this is you picking one of the binders, which I don't care about binders at all. I know some people are very into binders, and that's cool that you like it. The binder and the little display case, I think they're neat. I just don't care. But I do wonder if you can mark a binder as like what you have to trade, or if you could make a binder of like missing. So if I go to Hannah's profile, I can see that Hannah needs another Melmetal, and I could be like, Hannah, I got you. I got all the Melmetal. Actually, I don't have any Melmetal.
You traded away your Melmetal.
Technically, you could already do that, right? Because I can look. You could like put a binder up and you could say this is my trade.
Oh, you
binder.
could name it trade.
Yeah, I guess you can't do it for ones you're missing, obviously, because the whole point of the binder is the cards you have. But
they're also
you could
not
at
that
least
big. You can't put that many cards in a binder.
You can put like 30.
Yeah.
I mean, but I was thinking that this could be more
Hannah,
like...
Bobby. Hannah doesn't spend money. She's missing more than 30.
That's very true.
I was thinking that this would potentially be something like almost like GTS, where you like put, like, I want to trade
what you're looking for and what you are willing to trade.
1-star. Yeah, and then you could potentially put like what you're looking for that card, and then someone else could see that, click on your thing, see that, and be, oh, I have this card, I can trade it to you.
I was kind of hoping for that the other day, just as I was thinking about trying to get the cards that I'm looking for. That would be kind of nice, but I think it's going to be slightly different based off the way it's worded here.
It's just, It's just hard.
Maybe only
Unless you-
based off your friends list, because your friends list is ultimately pretty useless right now.
Well, that's the thing, right? Unless you know the people, unless you have some other way to converse with the people that you're friends with, like, how are you trading? Like, every once in a while, I'll just get a random trade where someone will just be like, I want to trade you this. And it's like, well, I don't want that. Like, but now it's taken up my trade slot. So I have to go and decline it so that, like, I can get another random trade from someone who's on my friends list too. It's like, I don't want these cards that you're trying to trade me. And I get it. You're just trying to do a random trade. But it's like, unless you have another way to talk to those people, there's no way to, like, negotiate a trade in any way, right? Like, for things that you actually want. Like, it works well in our Slack because it's like, oh, if I'm friends with the people in Slack, we can just talk to each other through Slack to negotiate
Slack,
a trade.
Discord, Reddit.
Any of those communities are outside of the game. But, like, the people who I've just randomly have been added, like, over time from battles and things like that.
Part. There's no way to turn that off right now.
And it's like, well, I can't do what we can't trade unless we're just randomly trading cards without knowing what
Bobby, you just need to start making them offers. That's the problem. if they're gonna put up like a Dialga EX, you got to put up a Gengar EX because
none of them
Gengar
have put up anything that's above like a 2 diamond because they don't want to spend the tokens, so they just put up like a random Starly, and I'm like, I have 12 of these. I don't need a Starly, like.
But you could have 13. Sometimes, Bobby, it's not about what you do. You can already have it. Sometimes it's just about the thrill of the trade. If they're trading you a Starly, you hit them with a Pidgey. They're trading you a Psyduck, you hit them with a Ducklet.
I would love if attached to that Starly, they had an ability to say, like, these are some of the things I would like on that same, like, rarity list. Because I don't mind. I would love to trade them, like, a card that they want. But I don't want to just trade them a Pidgey for a Starly.
I do.
If they're
Send
like...
me the request.
Also, by the way, there is a setting to turn this off.
turn
the
off
random friend requests?
The trade offers.
Oh, okay. I don't care about
the
that.
trade
No,
offers?
send me the Pidgeys.
Oh. But I don't want to turn off trade offers completely because, like, when I do talk to someone, I have to go turn it on then, right?
No, then you could be the one to initiate the trade.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
As long as they haven't turned off trade offers too.
I don't want the opponent who just slow played me because they were losing to then send me a friend request after our match. Like, let me turn that off.
You don't want someone that
might
add
be a
you
setting
as a friend,
too.
and then send you a Starly to trade after they slow played you.
Yeah. All right.
There's one more feature here. There's one more feature here that they're talking about.
What was the other feature?
So, in addition to the changes above, we are also looking into how to accommodate cards that are currently unavailable for trades, such as promos and 2-star rarity cards. Keep an eye out for more information about that. So, maybe to your point, you had mentioned this before, Steve. Maybe they'll have like
Promo
events.
trading day.
Yeah, like a day where you can trade promos.
Because I don't care about promos anymore. I am so sick of battling this Garchomp deck.
I still haven't pulled the Gibble yet.
Really?
I have pulled 6 Gibble, Bobby, 0 Staraptor.
Yeah, it took a while for me to get the Staraptor.
Staraptor's 25%, Gibble's
I've pulled
like 12.
A bunch of Staraptor. Yeah, I just haven't pulled Gibble. All right, we need promo trade day so I can get my Gibble.
I can get you Gibble, please.
Because it ends today, or it ends as
ends
we're recording.
I think
March 16th at 10:59 p.m. Yeah, yours probably says March 17th at midnight.
Oh, yeah, because
you're 2 hours ahead.
I'm in the future.
But yeah, it ends. Yeah, if you're listening to this on Monday, I think it's over.
It's done.
It's done because it ends tonight. Yeah.
Finally, no more Garchomp.
No, I need to keep playing so I can get the Gibble. But okay, so anyways, back to this article. It is interesting not interesting. It's unsurprising to me that they mentioned promos and 2-star rarities specifically, and then didn't
and nothing higher than that.
Nothing like 3-star or Crown, right?
Yeah.
So they're still like, no one ever gets to trade immersive cards to each other. So,
yeah, I mean, like, I think, again, going back to the YouTube videos, you can easily find of like, I spent $6,000. I think crowns are probably never going to be traded. At least this year.
That's where they're making a good amount of money, probably. A decent chunk, at least.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some Claude and some Pokemon Go and some other stuff. So we will be right back.
I am recording.
I am recording. Ba, ba, ba.
And we are back from our break. All right, we're going to be talking about Claude. If you don't know what Claude is, we will explain it. This is supposed to be a fun segment. It is about AI. I promise I don't care about AI. I've turned it off on every one of my devices. Maybe one day I will care. I'm just giving you my own personal thoughts. I don't really care about AI. I think Claude is fun, though. And I wanted to talk about Claude because it's fun. Second disclosure. I know the Pokemon Company hates mods or ROMs or any of that stuff. They have acknowledged Twitch Plays Pokemon. This is very similar to Twitch Plays Pokemon. We are not telling people how to...
But I had some questions.
I mean, it's similar to Twitch Plays Pokemon as it's on Twitch and we're watching somebody play Pokemon Red and Blue.
We're watching something play Pokemon, yeah.
I think using Pokemon as a threshold or as
it was used as a benchmark.
Using Pokemon
tool.
as a benchmark is the point of this conversation, and I think it's interesting because
Well, it's the point of Steve's conversation. I don't know if it's going to be the point of Hannah's.
Sure.
I mean, I had more issues. I mean, when it comes to the Claude Plays Pokemon stuff, it's more that we don't know who's doing it.
Claude.
Yeah, Claude is. What do you mean? Just like Siri is the one telling you the weather. Or...
Just in the About section, they say that it's a passion project made by a person who loves Claude and loves Pokemon. There are some places that are saying it's an Anthropic employee. Anthropic is the company that is behind Claude. Yeah. And then Anthropic posted on X implying that it is a researcher with an early preview, which is very nondescript.
Yeah. Seriously.
Just, if this is a company thing that the company is promoting, I feel like Pokemon should have feelings about that.
Claude is not making money on Twitch. Claude has not signed the affiliate agreement. So it's making $0.
So to back up for a second, Claude is a set of large language models or AI models that is developed by the company Anthropic. This is one of those models. It is Claude 3.7 Sonnet. Sonnet is for, they say it's for balancing capability and performance.
Yes.
And that's what's playing Pokemon. It's generating outputs that is controlling a Pokemon game.
I have never used ChatGPT at all. I've never went to the website. I've never downloaded the app. I've never used it. And I've turned off all the Apple Intelligence on my computer and everything. I don't care. I don't want it. So I'm just saying how I personally feel about AI. I don't use it. I don't care. I think Claude is fun to watch. Julian Bradshaw wrote this article about Claude. It says, so how well is Claude playing Pokemon? Background: after the release of Claude 3.7 Sonnet, Anthropic employee started Boy, the Anthropic word really threw me off. Employee started live streaming Claude, trying to play through Pokemon Red. The live stream is still going. Basically, while Claude is good at short-term reasoning Pokemon battles, he's bad at he's bad at functions and has a poor memory. Claude is on run 3 and has been stuck in Mount Moon for 24 hours straight. On run 2, it took him 78 hours to escape Mount Moon. Mount Moon is not that complicated. It has a few cave levels, a few trainers, but Claude gets stuck in loops, trying to talk to trainers he's already beaten, and often failing to talk to them, not understanding why his inputs don't do what he expects. Inching across solid walls, looking for an exit that can't possibly be there, always taking the obvious trap routes, rather than the longer, correct routes just because it's closer. This hasn't been the only problem. On run number 2, it eventually failed because it couldn't figure out it needed to talk to Bill to progress, and Claude wasn't willing to try any new actions in the same infinite rotation of wrong choices, walking in circles, entering the same buildings, complained the game was maybe broken.
Okay. But isn't that all of us at some point in time? This game's broken. I can't get to the next level. It's not me, it's the game.
That's why it did that, because that's how people talk. That is how people come to those conclusions. It's not thinking.
Yeah.
It's not reasoning. It's not learning.
The current Claude Plays Pokemon run is actually an interesting encapsulation of the current limitations of LLMs, large learning models.
Not quite. Large language models.
Oh, language models. That are more fundamentals than LLMs don't understand spatial reasoning because they don't. They added a whole new memory system after Run 2 with short-term and long-term text fix and the ability to edit and store and archive. And now he's pretty good at memory. He has a pretty good memory system that does improve navigation. But now that the lack of executive planning and goal planning and grasp of reality is really rearing its head, no amount of good memory will save you from no amount of good memory will save you if you just randomly see something and go, "Oh, I have achieved my goal. Time to delete all past files about achieving this goal," when the goal was not actually achieved. It really lacks a lot of human ability to plan, hold multiple goals at once, prioritize, and keep a grasp of what's going on. What does it mean for AI? It is obvious while Claude isn't very good at playing Pokemon, it's getting better. 3.7 does a significant better than 3.5 did, after all, and 3.0 was hopeless. So this isn't extremely hard-earned, half-random achievements. So far, the progress is still in the right direction and an indication of things to come. This is a pretty long article, but
yeah,
Claude is getting better.
It is able to reach further and further points. Some funny things are that a random number generator can do better than this, because they work in different ways. And the way that the generative models work is that they will result in loops sometimes, or a lot of the time. And I guess the thing that I really liked about this model, and here, let me preface this a little bit. I had an internship in this stuff a decade ago. So generative models and language models are stuff that I have been thinking about a lot, and I have a lot of strong feelings, which is why I'm having those strong feelings. What I liked about looking at this post is that this is someone who really truly believes AI is artificial intelligence. That what we currently refer to as AI is actual artificial intelligence that could evolve and become more like a human. As someone who knows how this works, that's not the technology we have today. And so it's really fun to reach the end of the article and see that this person who really, really believes that this is intelligent computing, has watched Claude Plays Pokemon, and it has broken that belief.
Yes.
It's kind of amazing, just because of how much it fails. Because Claude Plays Pokemon really highlights how it doesn't have understanding. It doesn't actually have expectations. It doesn't have knowledge in the same way. It can't reason in the same way that we expect. It's not... I have a lot of feelings. People talk about these things with very humanizing terms, and that is not correct.
So when you brought up random number generator and you said it was better, there was a stream on Twitch, which was Fish Plays Pokemon, which was a camera pointed at a fish tank, and depending on where the fish swam, moved the controller. And that fish was able to beat the game.
Yes, exactly. And Claude is going to continue to fail, and I don't think has made it past 3 badges at this point.
No, as of recording right now, he is back on the SSN after being stuck in Cerulean City for... Well, he got to the SSN. I want to tell you some funny things that Claude has done. So I started watching when Claude arrived in Vermilion City, so he already had 2 badges. And of course, they've restarted Claude twice now, because... So the first time with 3.0, this is the 4th Claude run. With 3.0, Claude could not get past the start screen. And then with 3.5, Claude got stuck on the parcel delivery. And then the new version of 3.5, Claude made it out of Viridian Forest. And then with this one, Claude has made it all the way to Vermilion.
Mm-hmm. And that took about a month's worth, like the amount of time you would take working a 40-hour-a-week job for a month.
Yeah.
Approximately.
So Claude finally made it to the SSN, and at some point, because he talks to everyone over and over in the town, and he'll say stuff like, talking to NPCs is really valuable because they will give you hints on what to do next, which is correct. That is that as a child who didn't read anything, I never talked to the I did talk, but I didn't listen. So I think the why I like Claude so much is because it reminded me of when I very first played Pokemon and I got all the way to the Celadon City, and I didn't know how to progress through the game. And so I thought the game, as a 10-year-old, I thought the game was broken and I messed up. And so I restarted my entire game because I thought I don't know where to go. I don't know who to talk to. I am talking to people. They're not telling me what I need to do next. What I needed to do was find the Team Rocket lair and get the binoculars or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I remember being like, I messed up. It was my fault. And I get that with Claude, where Claude is like, what am I doing wrong? You're doing a lot wrong, Claude.
I mean, yes, it's very, very amusing. It's fun to watch. It is funny to see it mess up in a lot of ways, especially when it says it's going to press one button and it does something totally different. But that's just how it works, because every single action is another query, and what it is doing is it is generating a response to the query. It is not generating intent. It is generating a string of letters that is what comes out. It's a lot more complicated than that. I did look into all of the information that's given on it, but it's generating a response to your query via its algorithm and its model processes that determine a statistically likely organization of pixels of what is statistically likely to come next. That is how this works. It's not really saying things. It's not really thinking things. The output does not have meaning behind it until we read it and assign it that meaning, because that's all on us.
Yes. That's the entertaining part of Claude.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So when Claude first made it to the SSN, which I was there for, and it was a big moment. Claude shot up from 1,000 viewers to 1,500 viewers because word of mouth of Claude made it to the boat finally. He's here because he's been in Vermilion City for so long. Once he was on the boat, he convinced himself that he needed to talk to the fishing guru, which an NPC told him in town that there was a fishing guru. So when he got to the boat, he was like, I'm on a boat, and boats must mean fishing. So in order to progress in the boat, I need to leave the boat to talk to the fishing guru. He then spent 24 hours looking. He found the fishing guru, and he got the old rod. He doesn't know what to do with the old rod yet, but he got it. He then, after 24 more hours, got back to the boat, realized that the fishing rod / fishing guru didn't matter at all. And then he convinced himself, I don't know how, but he convinced himself that the SSN was a pedal boat and that he must need to go get the bike because the bike has pedals. And so then he left the SSN to then go back to Cerulean City to then go get the bike, which he did get the bike. And he sometimes just randomly gets on the bike because he thinks that's going to solve the issue. So he'll randomly get on the bike and drive around for a little bit. Mm-hmm. So then he was stuck in Cerulean City for almost 3 days because even as a kid, Cerulean City is kind of complicated. Because your only way out of Cerulean City is to go through a house, which has a hole in the side of the wall because of Team Rocket. So every time he went into the house, and because the house has a police officer at the door, he convinced himself that the house was really dangerous, even though he's left that house like twice to leave. And that was in his memory of like he called it the trash house. In his memory, it says the trash house is the way to leave Cerulean City because he's done it twice. But then he also convinced himself that the trash house was really dangerous and it was a dead end. So you can see both these things in his memory. And it was just like pure luck that he decided eventually to walk one step further into the trash house to where he could then see the door. Because when you first walk into that house, you can't see
beyond the cutoff of the screen.
Yeah, the door is cut off, so he can't see it. So it was a lot of people, including myself, thought like, "Oh, the run is dead." Like he's so far convinced himself that this house is a dead end, even though in his memory he knows that this is the way to leave. Last night or yesterday evening, he somehow got back to Vermilion City, and he then made it back to the SSN, where he knows that the captain is sick, but then he convinced himself that a random NPC is the captain because that NPC says, "Leave me alone," and "leave me alone" to him felt like, oh, he must be sick. That's why he wants to be left alone. So he keeps going into this NPC's house being like, this is the captain.
I was watching at that point too. Yeah.
So as of this recording, he's still on the boat, which is good. That's the farthest he's ever made it. I don't know if he'll get much better when he gets cut, because maybe he won't be stuck in Cerulean City again if he has cut, because he knows the bushes need to be cut. He's very well aware, because when you talk to the bush, I think it does say like, you can cut this.
Yeah, right.
But I think using Pokemon Red and Blue as like a benchmark of AI is very interesting, and I think it's only interesting because I like Pokemon, and so I can see and I understand Pokemon, so it applies it to something like I know very well. But also the fish was able to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it's amusing.
Remember, these companies are getting billions and billions and billions of dollars, and we're watching it play Pokemon. We're watching one of the, like, there's, I don't want to get into it because, again, it's not super fun, but
I mean, like, I'm happy to get into it.
It's just like, it's interesting. This is like maybe one of the more, definitely one of the, like the more like fun things that I've seen these things do, but it's like I feel like, I don't know, I feel like there's so much more that could be had at some point, and like right now it's just,
with the technology we have, it's not leading to this. It's taking the information that it has and turning it into a query and generating an output. With a lot of usage of electricity and water and outputs of a lot of CO2, with a lot of data theft involved, and without fair labor practices a lot of the time.
Hey, Claude's working very hard. He's a little slow.
The fish did not need to do any of those things to beat the game.
Yeah, I don't know if the fish was never interesting to me because it was just purely random.
And I think that when you know more about how this works, it's a lot closer to that than it seems when you're watching the stream. If you understand the back end, which there's a surprising amount of people watching Claude that really don't care about Pokemon.
Right.
You can see if you're in the Twitch chat long enough, and it kind of depends on, like, if Claude is doing something new, like when he makes it back to the SSN, you will see a lot of like normal Twitch viewers of like, oh my gosh, Pog, he's here, like very excited. And that energy is really infectious on Twitch. It's why people want to watch Pokemon movies together, or it's why people want to watch, shiny hunting or whatnot. There's a sense of community that I think Twitch does really well, and it is why 1,000 people are watching Claude. Is because like when Claude finds the captain, you're gonna see a bunch of people just be so excited that he found the real captain and not the fake captain, right? But when Claude is doing badly, like when he's stuck in Cerulean for almost 3 days because he's convinced himself the trash house is a dead end, you won't see those people on Twitch because it's boring now. Claude's not doing anything new. But then you'll start seeing the AI bros who, well, like not to punch down on them, but they're having conversations of like, this is a lost cause. This model is not up to date. Like, he's never going to get out of this loop. Like, he's not remembering enough. He's deleting information that is like way too important because he just thinks he's solved something. And it is interesting. I don't think it's good or bad. It's just interesting to see them talk about like, this is a waste of time, or like this is not showcasing AI in a good way.
It's showcasing AI in the best way.
It's showcasing AI
work.
at all. Yeah, right.
That it confidently generates output that we are interpreting, that we can interpret as intent and as something it believes is true, when that is just synthetically generated output.
Yeah.
That may or may not work or be true.
Right.
I don't know, just there's been a lot of ways we are talking about it these days, where previously we used to call it, it started out being language models, is how this technology kind of started out. Then it was neural language models, which is where we started kind of talking about it more like the way the human brain works and the way we think of neurons, or at least the way we thought of neurons in the 1940s. And then it became large language models, which is still kind of what we work with today. But then we started, at some point in the last decade, calling it, instead of using the word model, we dropped that and call it AI and call it artificial intelligence. And there is a lot.
You know why?
Marketing.
Because investors want to hear that.
Yes.
That's the only reason.
If you go to the Anthropic website talking about this benchmark, I went and made a list of all the humanizing terms that they are using to convince people that this is magic. Mm-hmm. That they are saying that this model thinks thoughts, says things, is intelligent, engages in deception, uses reasoning, double checks answers, has a mind, can learn, has incentives, can deliberately hide certain thoughts, can focus and maintain focus on a goal, can consider approaches to a problem, and can see things. And none of those, that's all very, very, very humanizing language to describe that it is taking a lot of information as an input. It has a lot of training data that it has been trained on, and it is generating a synthetic output of what it thinks comes next. Mm-hmm. Of the pixels that it thinks comes next. No meaning. There's no meaning.
Yeah, I know that AI is just a marketing term, and we'll Niantic is. We'll get to Niantic in the next section, but but John Hankey's all into both AR and now AI, which is whatever. We won't have to talk about John Hankey much longer, but I think why it maybe feels like I think maybe why it feels better in a video game, in like Pokemon, is because when you're battling the NPC, you want to believe that the NPC is making good decisions. Even like today in current Pokemon games, like when I'm in Sword and Shield and I'm battling I don't know, like a Mareep, and the Mareep decides to use Thunder Wave, I'm like, oh cool, like that makes sense. And then the Mareep uses Thunder Wave again. You're just like, but why would you do that? Mm-hmm. I'm already paralyzed. That move doesn't do anything. And then it kind of breaks the illusion of the video game of the computer is just randomly picking a move. There might be certain weight to what move it prioritizes, but if I was playing against a human, the human would know, well, most humans would know that you have no reason to use Thunderwave twice in a row. And so when, as a kid and even going into an adult, and you see, you play Pokemon games, or even if you play like fan-made Pokemon games, which I'm not advocating for you to find, but those fan-made Pokemon games are meant to be like harder. You're still like applying the logic of like the computer knows better. But it's still probably programmed for the computer just to hit like the most optimal move.
Yeah. Those are kind of programmed bots.
Yeah.
As opposed to generative bots, which is kind of what we're seeing with the Claude Plays Pokemon thing. That there are programmed responses as opposed to generating responses that are forced to be a series of button presses. Like, I don't think Claude is generating anything telling it to press a triangle button rather than A or B or up or down. Right. And actually, I watched a lecture this morning preparing for this from a author of a good AI paper that I like and a book that's coming out soon called The AI Con. And one of the examples she gave as a potentially appropriate use case of AI with a lot of stipulations and safeguards involved was NPCs in video games.
Yeah, because I guess it's a whole different conversation, but like just like the tip of the iceberg of it is when people say that Pokemon games are too easy or not hard enough. And like that illusion has been broken on me for a long time.
Right.
And they might point out like fan-made games and go like, these are harder. And that's true. Like they're probably optimized in a way for their program to, instead of pressing one of four moves, they're optimized to press the best move depending on just looking at your Pokemon. But but they also like I've never programmed a game, but I find it hard to believe if like the Elite Four sees you use a move and then remembers that you use that move and then tries to optimize around that. Whereas like a real player would, if I'm in a competitive battle VGC on stage, and Wolf Glick is a really good example. If you watch Wolf Glick play, he has a notepad in front of him, and that's legal. You're allowed to have a clean notepad in front. But if you use a specific move, he's going to write that down because he wants to remember it, so he can optimize his plays better. And we want to like assume that like in video games that's happening, but the reality is it's not.
Not in that way, but probably some of the harder NPCs to go up against have access to data that you wouldn't have if a player was playing as them. Like they could probably have access to the data that is your moveset without needing to be a generative model.
Yeah.
Do they currently though?
Some of them might. I don't know.
The Ogre Pond clan battles much better than most NPCs in Pokemon games. But you would think, going back to the Mareep example, you would think there would just be something very basic in the game code that says like, check if Pokemon is paralyzed. Okay, don't use Thunderwave anymore. There's no point. You're wasting a turn, right? But there's nothing that signifies that. I would say that like 7-star raid bosses maybe are programmed a little bit better, because if you were to like contrary Malamar skill swap, the raid boss would stop using Sword Stance. It would be smart enough to be like, oh, Sword Stance is going to lower instead of increase. But overall, I personally don't find the NPCs in Pokemon games to be smart. But I think when the NPC does something random, like let's say you go to switch out because you think it's going to use a water type move, so you're going to switch to a grass type Pokemon, and it just decides to use a flying type move, and so you flip into a grass, it uses a flying, you're like, oh my gosh, how did it predict that? But the reality is it didn't predict that. Right, it just randomly picked one of its 4 moves, and it was just a coincidence. Like, it had no clue you were going to switch into an Arboliva. But those moments are exciting, and I don't want to take that away from people. But like if I wanted to feel challenged, or I wanted like to me quote unquote harder, that's why I like that VGC is there, because I think playing against real people is significantly more interesting. I can make mistakes, they can make mistakes. Their reasoning for doing something isn't always optimal. And that's why I've never been interested in fan-made games, because once you realize that those harder, I'm air quoting for our podcast listeners, once you realize that those harder Pokemon games are optimized to make the best decision possible, you just switch your thinking to like, oh, they're just going to make the best. Like a human player is not going to make the best decision possible, because that might not be what they are planning in like 2 or 3 more turns.
Right. They're not making the best decision possible for the long term. They're making the best decision possible. The harder, quote unquote, harder games are not making the best decision possible longer term. They're making the best decision possible in the moment, like in that shorter term moment. Whereas like a human has the thought process where they might be making what is not the best decision possible in the moment, because in the long term it is actually like that move is the best decision possible for the long term goal, which those harder Pokemon games, quote unquote harder Pokemon games, might not be built to do.
And a generative model, potentially, as an example, could make a move that might not be the best decision because it is working off of data, or it has landed on a pattern of data that would have been for one of those longer term decisions, that would have been for a longer term plan. But then on the next move, it recalculates everything, it runs a whole nother query, and it can just totally change track from that. So that's how we end up going in circles and running into tables.
We're thinking a table is a trash can.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to mention about Claude is, while I was watching Claude, he got stuck. He got stuck where the little tree is to get to Lieutenant Surge's gym.
Okay.
And he kept calling the thing next to the tree a bush. And I was watching it with my Twitch chat, and I said, as a kid, I always thought that was a rock. And my Twitch chat looked at me and they were like, it's green. Rocks aren't green.
A lot of moss.
Game Boy colors.
And so, I know what you're going to say, Hannah. And so I'm like, yeah, it is green. I don't remember looking at that as a kid. And so I've watched Claude for probably like 2 hours, on and off this past week. And I was like, this is I'm like, I remember all of this. I remember Vermilion City, I remember Cerulean, I remember the Underground Path, I remember the SSN. And I was like, why did I think that was a rock? And I looked up what red and blue look like, and there was no color.
Right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But in my head, I'm like, this looks exactly how I remembered it as a kid. And after 2 hours, I'm just like, this is what I remember. I remember the game looking like this. And then when I looked it up, I was like, oh my gosh, there was no color. So the rock and the bush, which I thought was a rock, was gray like a rock. And the little thing you cut next to it was also gray. Everything was gray.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Game Boy Color only changed it to a shade of blue or a shade of red, and then I was like, Pokemon Yellow must have looked like what Claude is playing. And it wasn't. It was just a shade of yellow.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just,
our brains fill in a lot of missing information. That's
Yes.
how we read books. That's how
Yeah.
we read fiction books and imagine entire worlds. That's how we played these old games and could imagine ourselves being in the Pokemon battles. And that's why it's so hard to go back to them now when we have newer games with better graphics where we don't have to imagine all of that because we're not used to imagining it anymore.
Right.
Yep.
So when I think of people who are like, "Oh man, I'm so like," I think of people who are their childhood was red and blue like mine, and there's probably a lot of people like me who just they look at Claude and they go, "Yep, that's my childhood. I remember it exactly." Which the reason Claude has color is because they added they added a color pack. Again, we're not advocating for downloading ROMs or modding or anything. Just the logic here. They added color so Claude could navigate easier. Because I think this would be impossible if everything was just grayscale, which
The fish didn't need color.
that's true. Are fish colorblind? I have no clue. But it was very eye-opening to watch this for 2 hours and be like, yep, I remember this exactly. And then doing a simple Google search being like, I can't believe I thought that this is what the games looked like as a kid when they didn't. They didn't look like that.
If there's one way I can bring this around to AI, even though that specific thing is not AI specific, that is a reason that you absolutely, if using AI in any way, need to check what it is telling you, because it will confidently lie to you, and then
Lie is not the
even
right word.
things-
It will generate incorrect output.
but it comes across that way because people will humanize
Because that's
it
how
into
it's worded,
thinking
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So you have to check what you're
Yes,
reading.
That's
because,
like the number one rule.
Yeah, it will
Only
like,
use these tools if it is a case where you can
Yeah.
recognize whether the output is true or not.
Yeah,
Do you know what
Which
that
is why
reminds
it's so
me of?
bad for search.
yeah.
It reminds me of, I think we're all pretty much the same age. It reminds me of when we were in, well, we're all close. Look, there's not like 20 years between us.
That's true.
I don't even think there's 10 years between us. It reminds me of when we were in school and we were told not to use Wikipedia as a source. But you had to like scroll down to the bottom and then like
you
use the
find
footnotes.
Yeah, you
It's
go actually
similar
look up
but different.
Right.
Yeah.
But like,
But
you can't
to the
trust
point of-
Wikipedia, so you have
Yeah,
to scroll down.
like-
So like when I search for something on Google and it gives me the AI summary, I'm like, where's the link? Like, where are you
The
getting
link.
this
Yeah.
from? Because I want to go there instead of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another fun thing I learned as I was just sort of gathering thoughts on this is that librarians are getting a lot of requests from people with sources so someone will generate like a school paper and it'll have sources at the bottom. And then they try to go find those sources at the library and they ask the librarian to find that source and it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Or lawyers with cases. Yeah.
Yes, the lawyers with cases thing. That's been terrible. Where they'll bring up a case,
It's still happening.
and the judge is like, "That's not
Yeah.
a case.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist." And they're like, "Well, and then it turns out that like
it
they
generated
used
incorrect
AI
input.
to generated a case that didn't actually happen, and then they'll
Yep.
bring it to court and present it.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yep.
Wild.
I guess I did come up with like 4 top rules for using generative models if I can run through those real quick.
Yeah, let's do
because
the 4
Bobby
rules
just
and then
mentioned the first one.
let's run through the 4 rules and then we'll take a break here.
Yeah, Bobby just mentioned the first one, which is make sure you know enough to understand if the output is correct or not. Also, think about the data privacy of anything you're inputting, because it's a lot. Then be aware that the output is a generated synthetic output. There's no intent. There is no intended meaning behind the output. All of the meaning is what you get looking at it and reading it. Then don't use it where originality is required because you will not know if you're plagiarizing. And then just earlier, know that most of them are created in ways that most of the big ones that people are using these days are created in ways that harm others. So, trade-offs.
Yeah.
I'm still AI free. I haven't used any.
There are ways that these tools can be used in appropriate cases. We just don't have... Let me rephrase that. There are ways that this kind of technology can be used in appropriate ways. We just don't have those as the tools that exist these days.
Yeah.
The tools that exist these days try to convince you that they are intelligent talking computers. They are not.
Well, if you're worried about losing your job to AI, show your employer Claude, and you might be safe.
Claude Plays Pokemon specifically.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Claude. Yeah, not the website.
Don't
Claude.
show your employer Claude. That may actually. Yeah.
Actually, showing them Claude might make you lose your job. Show them
Yeah,
Claude getting stuck in Mount Moon for 3 days and be like, "This cannot do what I can do." All right, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about the Pokemon Go sale. We will be right back. And we are back from our break. Boy, this is a fun episode so far. Pokemon Go moving to a new home with Scopely. We're going to go through this and then give our thoughts. I don't know if Bobby's thoughts have changed from 3 weeks ago. My thoughts are pretty much the same on that stuff. I think Chris's thoughts were incredibly insightful. And there's one thing that Chris said that I will bring up here that has never left my mind because it was a very good point. But this is off PokemonGoLive.com. Trainers, I'm Ed Wu, and I have the privilege of leading the Pokemon Go team at Niantic. Today I wanted to share some important news. Pokemon Go will be joining Scopely, a video game developer and publisher home to a wide range of leading games and talent teams around the world. Technically true. Monopoly Go, I think, is number one as we're recording this. As it's always important to me and our entire game, that our community understands and is excited about the long-term vision of this game. I want to share why I believe that partnership with Scopely will be they bolded this, will be a positive step for all of you and the game's future. First of all, Pokemon Go is more than just a game to me. It's my life's work. I've been part of Niantic since 2012 and been deeply involved in our projects. In 2015, I was the original engineer on Pokemon Go's codebase, and in 2016, launched the game working around the clock to make sure hundreds of millions of trainers could discover Pokemon in the real world. Like many of you, I have fond memories of 2016, such as bringing home an alpha build to my 2-year-old daughter, who intuitively and enthusiastically became the first young trainer to throw a Pokeball in our game. As an engineer, I've watched the code I've written for Pokemon Go's code written for Pokemon Go change people's lives drastically for the better. This includes my own family, relatives, improving from health and exercising while playing the game, and hearing so many of our community recount how they have met the love of their lives through playing Pokemon Go. I mean, sure. I get the human element you're trying to add here. It's not bad. Like, I understand. It's cute. Scopely expressed a deep admiration for this community and our team. I have every belief that Pokemon Go will further flourish as part of Scopely, not only into a second decade, but for many more years after, under the mission of discovering Pokemon in the real world and inspiring people to explore together. Our new partnership, along with our decade-long partnership with the Pokemon Company, means that we can maintain this long-term focus. Scopely fully believes in our mission and ongoing goal to create the best Pokemon Go experience possible. They also then link Scopely's response to this. The entire Pokemon Go team is staying through the partnership. This is bolded as well. The same people who have been guiding and building the game for years will continue doing what we love. We are always continuing to add to the game: raid battles, friends, Go Battle League, Roots, Dynamax, Gigantamax, and of course Pokemon Go Fest and our live events, which I look forward to doing for the many years to come. Scopely empowers their games teams as autonomous groups, buzzword, to go after roadmaps that they're inspired to pursue, and in which team believes is the best for their player experience. This approach is appealing to us at Niantic, as I have spoken to a number of game leads at Scopely who have given me great confidence in how the company enables each of their games to be independently developed and creatively thrive. I don't actually know if this is true or not. I'm going to believe it's true, but I don't know like how much freedom the Monopoly Go team has, how much freedom the Marvel Strike team has. I don't know. I know that Monopoly Go is very predatory, and I know that Marvel Strike Force has only gotten worse. And that is purely based off their own subreddit where everyone was like, yes, the game got worse. So I don't know. I'm going to trust that teams are individually ran, but and then they say, we will be joining a broader organization dedicated to games. I believe Pokemon Go can continue to thrive with Scopely's exclusive and long-term focus on game making. Scopely's status as a private company also means that we can prioritize what's best for you, our trainers, for the long term. We believe that prioritizing short-term gains at the expense of our long-term mission would be counterproductive and self-defeating. Every interaction I've had with Scopely's leaders has reinforced that we are in total agreement of scale, longevity, and most of all, real-world community of what makes Pokemon Go truly special. We are united in protecting that. And then they talk about our partners at the Pokemon Company have always been central to how we build the game together, starting with the physics of the first Pokeball thrown that we hand-tuned together. I'm incredibly grateful for their daily wisdom. Daily wisdom, yeah, I'm sure you're talking. I am very confident you are talking to them daily. Guidance and careful stewardship of our vision, discovering Pokemon in the real world. Very excited that our partnership with the Pokemon Company will continue as it has for the decade. Well, I mean...
Well, it would have to.
It has
if
to.
the game's going to keep existing.
Yeah. But sure.
I won't say that Pokemon Go will remain the same because it's always a work in progress, but we can create and evolve, and it will remain unchanged. But how we create and evolve it will remain unchanged, and I hope that we can make the experience better for all of you. Okay, so that was March 12th. I also was able to talk to Niantic, which I'll get to in a little bit. I don't think we need to go through Scopely's press release. It's kind of more the same. It's just like we're excited. I guess we should say that
this is all boilerplate language, normal stuff to say.
It was written by Claude, I think. So what Scopely bought is they bought Pokemon Go, Pikmin Bloom, Monster Hunter Now, Campfire, and Wayfair. They bought 5 things, and they bought all of the employees. I don't know if buying the employees is the right term, but they bought all of the teams that will move over. So you notice that I didn't say Ingress. Ingress will stay with Niantic as well as Peridot. Mm-hmm. And we have no clue if Scopely bought NBA or Transformers or any of the dead games. Like, not that it could have been part of the deal, and it could have been something they were like, well, if we want to spin these up in a year or two, we now have the rights to those. Or if they were just completely worthless at that point. I don't think we need to talk about that. I just wanted to throw that out there, that here are the 5 games. Well, Wayfair's not really Wayfair and Cat. Here are the 3 games and 2 apps that they bought, and they bought all the teams. So I have a bunch, like I said, I talked to Niantic, but I would love to hear from Hannah before I continue talking, because I just read a whole press release, and now I want something to drink.
I mean, I do have a lot to say. Usually episodes are kind of Hannah doesn't talk enough. This could be kind of a Hannah talks a lot episode. Because I wasn't there when y'all talked about this before.
How dare
when
you
the leak
not come
first...
to LA?
So are we ready for a Hannah talks a lot moment?
Always.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
That's my favorite part of the episode, is when Hannah talks.
I'm not angry at Niantic. I think there was a moment where Bobby thought that I was angry at Niantic in our text chat, and I'm not really angry at Niantic. This sale really makes sense for a company that had what was probably kind of a fun proof of concept game explode in popularity beyond what they had intended. by a lot. I'm sure it pulled the company away from their focus on AR for years. And I'm not surprised that they're trying to pull back from that. And I guess eventually, after a number of failed games, they realized that Pokemon Go was popular because of Pokemon and not because of AR. But they do know that AR has some potential, or at least I kind of agree with that. And they know they have a head start on it, so selling the game's side of things makes sense to me. I do have issues with who the game was sold to, but I don't have an emotional investment in Niantic outside of Pokemon Go, so I don't really care about the Niantic side of things. I am very disappointed in Pokemon because they had to okay this. They had to.
They sure did.
We know that. And y'all were at Unova Tour, and I wasn't on the pod right after the news of the sale leaked, which was honestly probably for the best, because it kind of prompted a whole identity crisis for me, the news leaking. Because, yes, I, like you all, was a kid who grew up playing these games, and they mean a lot to me, especially Pokemon Go meant a lot to me. But also, Pokemon has been the connecting thread throughout my entire life. It's all my oldest memories. It's the way I've made friends and connected with people everywhere I've stayed and lived for more than a few days. It's been the starting point of most of my friendships with a lot of the people who are here and listening, throughout my entire life, too. Pokemon is the thing I've gone to when I have been sad, or lonely, or heartbroken, or just needed something good. And pausing here, clarifying, this isn't me saying I'm done with Pokemon.
This is Hannah's last podcast.
But I think the Scopely sale has communicated to me that Pokemon can't and shouldn't be all of that for me anymore. Because, yeah, I am very well aware, and we talk about on the podcast all the time, that Pokemon is the most profitable franchise in history. And the company has continued partnerships in recent years that I've been critical of, like McDonald's and Starbucks, and I probably should have come to these conclusions sooner because of that. But because those were long-term ongoing partnerships, it didn't feel the same way. That felt like a different thing. Not a whole different thing, but a slightly different thing. And this sale of Pokemon Go to Scopely, okaying that, is a whole new, really gross, I think, decision that the Pokemon Company has made. This is the first time I have ever felt this aware of Pokemon being a big corporation, doing big corporation things for profit. And I mean, what I was thinking before was I guess they cared more about, I thought they cared more about their brand than that. But we'll see how it goes. Overall, at the moment, I am just very disappointed.
Yeah, no, I think you put that into words probably for a lot of people listening. And I think I didn't, when you said, like, I'm not mad at Niantic, I'm not attached to Niantic, I guess I've never really thought about it that way, but I'm with you. Like, there was really nothing about Niantic in itself that I was attached to. Like I talked to Niantic, but like the people I talk to, like, they care about Pokemon and they care about the game, and I know that they're trying to make, to me, and whether you want to believe me or not, but like the people I have worked with, I can tell that they want this to be the best game possible. But I also know that whoever they report to, they don't care.
Yep.
And that's that, like, when I have like two thoughts. The first thought is like the people online that are like, finally the game will be better. It's the same team. Like, it's the same people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's it. Now the executives will be different. But it's the same people. But going back to like the people I've worked with, I remember sitting in Indonesia. Disclosure, Niantic paid for my flight and my hotel to Indonesia. But they invited me out to lunch, and I'm sitting there with maybe like 4 content creators and maybe like 5 or 6 Niantic employees. And first off, shout out to the Niantic employee that told me not to order the spicy food in Indonesia and told me to order the medium. And the medium was way more spicier than I thought. So thank you, because I thought I could handle spice, but not Indonesian spice. But the craziest thing, the craziest takeaway I had was the handful of Niantic people sitting there. We're talking about taking paid time off from their job at Niantic to travel to either China or Japan to play in those Pokemon Go events that were happening. That's how much they loved the game. They were like, I'm so excited for the wild area. And then we were like, what's going to happen at the wild area? And they were like, we don't know. They didn't tell us either. And we were like, but you're going to go to Japan. They were like, yeah, we're taking our vacation to go to Japan to play in the wild area. Like, that's how much they love the game, that they're going to work on the game and then take time off to then go play the event in another country.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being a college student who was graduating and looking at the job boards for Niantic, thinking maybe I could be one of those people who loves Pokemon and helps build this game that I loved.
So it is, I don't know, not cool. It is nice that that team was purchased, so people aren't going to lose their job right away. I've been part of a company merger. I don't know if you guys have been part of a company merger, but like what I read here was exactly what I've read in my own merger and what other people have voiced that they've read in their own mergers, which is, don't worry, the team's coming over, nothing's going to change. It's still going to be the same thing you love. And the reality is that doesn't happen. Like, maybe after 3 months or a month or 6 months, people get laid off, or things drastically change. So I can look at that press release and go, yeah, this is a bunch of fluff, or this is what they would say regardless. I don't know. Like, I don't play Monopoly Go, so
you can look at previous games though, and you can see what has happened to those teams.
Yes.
And
yes.
historically, if those teams have been laid off or if things have changed, like, you have to imagine that a similar thing is going to happen with this team. And again, it may not be immediate. It may not be within the first 3 months or 6 months, based on all kinds of things. But I mean, you just have to look at historically what has happened previously with this company and the games that they have purchased and the teams, whether the teams have come over or not,
Yeah. I think that how I've been feeling about it and how I've been feeling about specifically, like, why I think this is such a bad thing, and why I'm disappointed in the Pokemon company. Like, I explained that I'm disappointed. The why goes kind of back to this, that from everything we have seen, Scopely games are driven, whether it is by Scopely or just the direction. Well, I'll get a little more into that. Scopely games become more manipulative and extractive, or at least are very manipulative and extractive games. And there is a really helpful term that I have to censor a little bit, but it's in beepification.
Beepification, I like that.
N-beepification. That is me censoring it a little bit. More people know about it now than I think the last time I brought it up on the podcast. It is a term that describes the process of companies starting out being so good to their users, before slowly, over years, shifting the focus more and more to profit, regardless of whether it makes the product worse.
Yes.
That this happens to search engines that used to work fine, that are now filled with ads for the first 2 pages. And also, harking back to the previous discussion, the very first thing you see is an incorrect statement from a text generator presented as truth.
Yeah, this episode is very well packaged. We got
It happens to devices that used to last decades that are now built to only last a few years. It happens to free-to-use apps over time that over time are stuffed more and more and more with ads and trackers and paywalls, while the quality of any actual gameplay gets worse. And as far as I can tell, that's the main thing that games at Scopely do. And all the press releases and all the communications are talking about how they plan to keep the Pokemon Go team not necessarily doing the same things, but on the same path. And even if that is true, the path they have been on, the path the Pokemon Go team has been on for the last few years, has already been the path of NBification. It's already been that. We are seeing stretches where almost every single event has a paid ticket. Community Day research costs twice as much as it used to for a lower quality research line. The exciting new item that a lot of people bought a tour pass for was time gated because they're already, users can't have anything too good. Can't get our hopes up too much. And I guess this is all, my response to all of the messaging we're seeing right now is that when they say nothing big is changing, is that because they are already well into the path of making this game worse for profit.
Yeah.
Monologue over. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I did talk to Niantic. I will tell you exactly what I told them. They when the news broke, they were like, "Hey, if you have any questions in this like group chat, let us know." And they were just like, "What about remote rate passes?" Like, maybe like if that's your priority, sure, I guess. This is what I said to Niantic. Maybe not a question, but both Niantic and Pokemon must be aware of Scopely's history and consumer perspective. Scopely was known for ruining Marvel Strike, and Monopoly Go has been rated one of the most predatory mobile apps. I think when others say players are concerned, these are the two games they point to that don't inspire a lot of confidence in this sale. On top of that, after a sale is completed, teams usually get downsized. The optimism here is reassuring, referring to them answering questions and referring to the blog post. The optimism here is reassuring, but outside perspectives of past Scopely games is hard not to point to. That doesn't even touch the issue of players' data moving to a new company and their parent company. Just another concern on the table. I hope the game remains healthy, and I hope it isn't a repeat of Marvel Strike Force. Again, thank you for answering our questions. This is the most reassuring. This has been a reassuring part of the news today, way more than the blog post laid out. To be fair, it was just over and over again, like, don't worry, things aren't changing. I got a response to that, which they said, you can quote this directly. So I'm quoting this directly. The Pokemon Go product team will continue to make all decisions on operations and future of Pokemon Go. Being part of Scopely does not change our approach to serving trainers, and we will continue delivering the gameplay you all know and love. So that was a direct response to my post.
It was also a non-answer.
Yeah. Does it make me feel better? No, I'm pretty indifferent. Like I would have guessed 3 weeks ago that they would have taken some of the team, not all of the team. But I guess it makes sense to take all of the team because you don't want to slow down what you have. Hiring and keeping employees is one of the most expensive things a company can do. So like rehiring, reteaching all those employees would just be a cost sink on top of the $3.5 billion they paid for it. So I guess that makes sense in retrospect. I would zero shock if there's 20, 30, 50% layoffs in 6 months. I would be more shocked if there are no layoffs this year, actually. Not that I have a horse in that race, but I don't want people to lose their job.
Yeah.
I want people to, keep working on the thing they're passionate about, assuming. Now, there could be people that just leave for the sake of leaving. They could feel exactly like Hannah. They don't like the parent company. They don't like...
I haven't even mentioned, I guess, Scopely, yeah.
Yeah, they feel that is normal with mergers. So if there's a handful of people that leave, like that's normal. Of like, I just don't want to be a part of this, or I got something else lined up. We don't know that. The deal, as of this podcast, the deal has technically not been signed. As of right now, I'm still talking to Niantic employees. but they
the
will
press
change
release is out, so it's as well as done, as good as.
Right. I'm just saying right
like,
now they're still Niantic employees. They're not Scopely employees.
Yeah.
But there are things that, like, there are regulatory things that can actually alter that. It doesn't, like, it still is not done
now?
yet. Like, what?
Right now?
Right now?
I don't expect that to happen, I think is at this point in time.
Sure. I mean, there's not going to be some kind of monopolization. Like, there's not going to be a monopoly thing.
They already have monopoly.
You know, so it's not like the Adobe Figma deal, but the Adobe Figma deal was laid out and officially announced and everything, and then it didn't happen. Like, you know, and that again was due to monopoly concerns, but I'm just saying, like, it is still not a completed deal as of now.
Yeah, there was another meeting I had with Niantic yesterday. I think it was yesterday. It was like 30 minutes. It was a lot of the same questions that if the questions were interesting, I would have read them to you, but they're not. Just a lot of like, I don't know, just like not the question I would have asked. I thought not the saying that my non-question was good, but I'm like, hey, these two games suck. Are you aware? Are you aware that these two games owned by this company that you are now working for are not good? I shouldn't say that they suck. Monopoly Go is not
making a lot of money.
Yeah,
a lot
Monopoly
of people play them.
Go is the #1 app, so clearly people like it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure there are tons of people who play that game completely for free. That I don't think that changes that it's a predatory app, but clearly it's fun enough for it to be #1 in the App Store, and that is what it is. Like, again, I'm sure there's tons of people who play that game for free, just like there's tons of people who play Pokemon Go for free. And I do stand by that. I think Pokemon Go is still one of the best free-to-play games out there. I sincerely stand by that. There's a lot you can do for free in that game. I'm not if you listen to our podcast 3 weeks ago, me, Bobby, and Chris, I was not optimistic about this. I don't think there's a single Scopely game that is not predatory in any way. I'm going to be optimistic for 2 points, but that does not mean I'm optimistic about the sale. Hannah mentioned it earlier, and I agree with Hannah. Niantic was never a video game company. They just weren't. They made a AR Pokemon light game. Remember when Pokemon Go came out? Just like me misremembering the color in red and blue, you could not do a lot in Pokemon Go.
I'm genuinely curious if they thought of it as a proof of concept.
Yeah, you could just there was no gyms, there was no battling, there was no trading, there was just catching and evolving. That was kind of it. You couldn't do a whole lot. That doesn't mean it wasn't fun. It was definitely very fun.
Log in half the time the first few weeks.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, they were never a video game company. They were an AR company. And now it's very obvious. Going back to the Claude conversation, Niantic cares about AR, and now they care about AI. Because every company cares about AI, because that's the buzzword to get you more money, to get you more investors, to pump up your revenue. So the one positive out of the two I have is this is now going to a company that understands video games. Maybe doesn't understand video games the way we want them to, but Niantic was never a video game company. So that's the one positive I take away from this is, and that's what was told to me in the meeting, the audio meeting, was they were excited that they were, and they said they admitted, they were like, you know, Niantic was never a video game company. We are now going to be under a video game company. We can talk to other teams, good or bad, whether it's like talking to the Monopoly Go team or talking to the Marvel Strike Force team, or those are the two. I can't remember the other Scopely games. Those are the two I remember. I think there's a Star Trek game.
Yeah.
And there might be value to that. I'm assuming Niantic could not talk to a lot of other teams because of NDAs or because of whatnot. But there might be value to talking about, hey, in my head, the conversation is, hey, Monopoly, how did you milk an extra $1 million this year out of your players? And Monopoly's like, oh, make a giant green button that says go and put it in the center of your app. I don't know. But I do think, going back to what Hannah said, that I'm not attached to Niantic. I don't think a lot of people listening to this podcast are attached to Niantic. A month ago, I said, I think some people like catching Pokemon, some people like raiding, and some people just like complaining about Niantic. And now those people who are complaining about Niantic, they lost their favorite thing about the game, because I guess they can move over to complaining about Scopely. It just doesn't roll off the tongue as well.
That's true.
So maybe, ideally, it should be a better fit. On paper, a video game company should make a video game better than an AR company that had no desire to make video games. On paper, that should be better. I don't know. We'll see. The second thing that makes me optimistic, like I said, I only have two things that make me optimistic here, is the Pokemon company is still very protective of their brand. And they are not like Hasbro. They are not like Disney. Hasbro owning Monopoly, Disney owning Marvel, where they don't really care. As long they'll license it out, they'll get their money. I mean, Disney does care. But from my understanding, Disney is not nearly as strict as the Pokemon company is on a lot of things. And I feel like I have to hit you all over the head with this book that says the Pokemon company is in charge over and over and over again. They're very controlling of their brand. And to reference what Chris said when he was on, the Pokemon company will ask another company to jump, and they expect that company to say, how high? And it is very likely that Niantic was sick of jumping, and they didn't want to jump anymore. And maybe Scopely was like, we'll jump as high as you want. And if that's the case, that's good. Because if the Pokemon company says, we want this, this, and this, and Scopely was like, no problem, that's good. Because if you notice the $2 tickets every single week, or the $15 raid pass, battle pass, or the Pokemon company was okay. You have to understand the Pokemon company was okay with all of that. They were. And I know people like blaming Niantic. I get it. But you have to understand, this is me hitting you with this book, you have to understand that the Pokemon company is okay with these decisions.
And I guess that's why that's not comforting to me anymore. You're saying that this is one of your 2 points that gives you hope, but the Pokemon company was okay with all of the stuff that's been making the game miserable.
I think though, with like an 8-year-old game, you have to change and you have to adapt. Like, what people were willing to give money for 8 years ago is not the same as today. Like, was Cub Fu worth $8? I don't know. Maybe to some people.
Cub Fu.
The
right?
second Cub, yeah, because you got a Cub Fu for free.
Right.
But like, one of the things that they said in the call was, we're not just putting random ads in the game. So I know the joke was like, before you catch a shiny Mewtwo, you'll have to watch like a 30-second ad, which is like, yeah, funny. But they said that would never happen. And I believe the Pokemon company would not let that happen. I do genuinely believe that. What I'm surprised about, and this could be a conversation for the future, is I'm surprised that 8 years of Pokemon Go, we don't have more ads in the game. Like, I thought we would have more sponsored Pokestops. Or, I do think, out of all the mobile games I've played with different ads, I do think the little balloon that, like, floats around, that doesn't bother me. It's really not that intrusive at all. And I've done the, like, Cheez-It, build the little, like, car out of crackers and ham and cheese, and it gave me a poffin and whatever. And, like, I was not insulted by that. It was like it was worth my 30 seconds to get $1 Poffin to like build the little cheese car. But like, if I was to see monetization happen, I think that I don't think the ticket. Well, I should say I don't think the ticket stuff can get worse, because they are doing pretty much one ticket a week, and for me, a lot of that is just it's not that big of a deal. Like I said, this week I don't need 40 Archon, so maybe if I did need 40 Archon, maybe I would pay $2. But I also don't need 40 Archon, and I don't want to play today, so very skippable for me. But I could see them making bigger deals with not Starbucks and McDonald's and cell phone providers. Those are like the 3 sponsored stops in the game. It's like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Boost Mobile, which is part of Sprint.
I think.
Yeah. But I'm thinking of like the stops you spin.
Yeah.
Like I am surprised that like Home Depot doesn't go to Niantic, right? I guess that's where you would go to and say like, we would like sponsored stops and we'll pay you this much for that. Like, I thought that would have happened 7 years ago. And right off the bat, at least in America, we got Starbucks, we got Sprint, and we got Boost Mobile. Those are the 3 that started. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, I guess we'll get more. And we really didn't. Like, the Boost Mobile and the Sprint went away. And then we got Verizon. And then we got AT&T. And it was only this year where we got, or maybe it was last year, we got Target. And we got GameStop. And maybe GameStop.
McDonald's also.
And McDonald's. Yes, McDonald's was a year 2 in Japan. But, like, isn't that kind of crazy to think? It took 8 years for McDonald's to have a sponsored stop in Pokemon Go? Like, why didn't Niantic sign that 6-7 years ago? Like, what? McDonald's will sign any deal.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't think Pokemon Go is a thing anymore.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I don't think a lot of these companies see Pokemon Go as what it was 8 years ago. Like, I would have thought those things would have happened shortly after Pokemon Go launched because of how popular and how much it had hit, like, the mainstream, like, in everything. I would have thought to see those, but like 8 years on, I wouldn't expect to see like Home Depot and like other companies coming forward to try to get sponsored stops from Niantic.
I think there's, I mean, like, you look at how Pokemon is still popular with McDonald's when it comes to the TCG thing they just did, and they do cards once or twice a year. I think there is still. You almost sounded like a person that's like, people still play Pokemon Go.
I mean, a lot of people are.
In the eyes of like some of these companies, maybe not McDonald's specifically, but I would say in the eyes of a lot of these companies, that is kind of if you went up to the decision makers of those things, they would say people still play Pokemon Go. Like, yeah,
but I think if you're Niantic or you're the Pokemon company and you have all of this data about us, which is your Home Depot Pokestop gets spun 40 times a day, and we have proven that if it's a sponsored stop at Starbucks, it gets spun 80 times a day based on the geographics of this location. I think if you're that company, you go to these companies and you sell them hard data that, like, turning this into a sponsored stop for X amount of money will get you more foot traffic for 30 days. I think you can do that. I don't think Niantic cared about that because it wasn't part of their AR vision. Where, like, Scopely loves money, obviously. Mm-hmm. And they there's a reason why Monopoly Go is the number 1 downloaded app and the number 1 grossing app, is because they figured out money. So again, I don't think this deal is great, but I am still shocked that we don't have more sponsored stuff in the forms of balloons and in the form of the sponsored stops, which I think I could see those increasing, and that never bothered me.
Yeah, they're not obtrusive. I was really impressed when those were first introduced, actually. Both of those things. They are maybe the least obtrusive ads I have ever seen.
Yeah. But I also don't like the "don't worry, nothing's going to change," because like I feel like things should change. Like I just did the Raikou weekend, and I still love Dino. I know people are I know people are like, you're shilling for Niantic. No, I genuinely love Dynamax and Gigantamax raids. I find them super fun. This should not be surprising since I like raids and I like raids and Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. It should not be surprising. My favorite thing in Destiny was raids. My favorite thing in Final Fantasy was raids. It shouldn't be surprising to anyone. That yesterday when I did however many Raikou, I think I did 9, was a miserable experience. And it was bad because the game is bugged right now. Like, dodging does not work in Pokemon GO. Niantic says dodging does not work. We're working on a fix. So as somebody who plays healer/defender in raids, because everyone else wants to attack, which is not uncommon for Pokemon GO. You play Scarlet and Violet, everyone wants to attack. You play Final Fantasy XIV, everyone wants to be DPS. No one wants to heal, no one wants to tank. So I get it. I like healing. I like being the support. I love it. But as somebody who is playing support, I cannot dodge Raikou's Shadow Ball, which means I'm taking a ton of damage trying to make sure everyone stays alive, and it sucks. It's hard. You just die way quicker, and then everyone looks at you like you're the weak link on the team. You're alive because of me! So, like, I would hope that a video game company would also say, fix your video game, because there's a lot of things in Pokemon Go as a video game that just doesn't work, and it makes it for a bad experience.
I mean, spaghetti code's a problem everywhere.
And I can see, although I don't know, that Niantic doesn't prioritize things that doesn't benefit AR or what their vision was of the game. So things go on the back burner. I've seen 2 TikToks this past week of people who used to work at Niantic. And I sent them to you. I think the first TikTok was a guy saying that he worked on the egg incubator feature, where it would show like a little egg that you need to put, which is convenient, but is also like designed for you to use more incubators, right? But he said that he had a bunch of things he was working on, and Niantic said no, because they weren't a priority, which is not exclusive to Niantic, right? There's a bunch of companies that are just like, we don't have time for this.
Every company. There's project management memes of putting stuff on the backlog and things never coming back again.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
And then the second TikTok, what was the second TikTok I sent you guys? That was
last night. The person, being happy that it was a gaming company. Yeah. In particular.
Oh, and because they specifically said Niantic prioritized AR stuff.
Yeah.
So they were like, I think they worked at Niantic for 4 years. They worked on some of the live events, and then they worked on something else. I think they said they worked on one of the battle features. I think. Anyways, doesn't matter. They worked for Niantic, but they said that this was positive to them because they were like, yeah, Niantic's not a video game company. Mm-hmm. But again, I really want to stress, anytime you see Niantic make a decision, you just have to keep in mind that the Pokemon company was okay with that. Mm-hmm. Like, if Niantic wanted to add Ogerpon tomorrow, they'd have to ask the Pokemon Company. And the Pokemon Company would be like, no, she is still being a queen in the VGC. She's not ready for Pokemon Go. And that's probably a realistic conversation of what they would say, honestly. Like, if Niantic wants to introduce Cramorant, they might have an ideal of how they want to use Cramorant. They might want to say, like, we want to use Cramorant for GBL. We want to introduce it to GBL. The Pokemon Company has to say okay to that. Like they probably were like, I would assume a lot of Niantic employees understand the history and lore of Pokemon, and most of them do, at least the ones I've interacted with. But there's no way Niantic would be like, we want Stonejourner to be everywhere. No, the Pokemon Company would be like, no, Stonejourner's only appearing in these countries. You can't have it any other way, right? Like, I'm just stressing. You have to just keep in mind that Niantic doesn't go, we want to limit remote raid passes. Are you cool with that, Pikachu? Like, Pikachu has a say. Pikachu is going to say, like, we're okay or we're not okay. Why do you want to do this? This is why we want to do this. And you have to also consider and keep in mind that there are things that Niantic has to do. When Pokemon Company says jump, Niantic has to jump. So if Pokemon wants... Here's a really good example. If Pokemon wants Pokemon Go to advertise their other game, Pokemon Sleep, which they did, Niantic sees zero benefit of that at all. People might go out and buy a Go++. Niantic's not making money from that, even though people are using it. Sure, you get 7 Sleepy Hat Snorlaxes that Niantic now has to put in to advertise another game. The only winner in that advertisement of each other is Pokemon themselves. Mm-hmm. They get the money from they get their cut from Pokemon Go, they get their cut from Pokemon Sleep, they get the sales of the Go++. Like, Pokemon Sleep doesn't get money from the Go++. Pokemon Go doesn't get money from the Go++. That is just Pokemon. Mm-hmm. So if there's another new game coming out down the line and they want Pokemon Go to advertise that game, guess what Niantic has to do? They have to put that in. So I feel like a broken record, but the Pokemon Company has a lot of say. I don't know how much say Hasbro has when it comes to Monopoly Go, but I want to believe, and this is not to say that Pokemon is a bad guy by being very demanding or being complicit with Niantic. They're a company, and they like money, and they're very good at making money, and they've worked with companies that are not particularly very good. Hannah's mentioned a couple of them, but at the end of the day, you have to remember they're not a person. They're not a human. They're a big corporation that wants to make money. And sometimes that's hard for people to disassociate with.
I think...
Easy to disassociate with.
Oh, yeah, easy to disassociate. I was like, I'm missing a word here.
Hard to,
yeah.
I think if you, particularly in tech, if you, over the last few years, have been in America, you may have felt similarly to some of the tech companies and things that they've done. Like, this is
big corporations doing big corporation things.
Yeah, and you've started to, like, look at these things differently, look at these companies in a different light, or just kind of started to have your, like, relationship with that company change a little bit. Maybe, like, how you think about them as a company. And I'm not saying, like, sometimes they become more apparent that you start to remember, you start to understand, like, oh, right, this is a big corporation. Like, it's not, maybe they didn't start off that way. Like, most of these companies that become these giant corporations, they don't start off as giant corporations, right? They have one mission, or they work one way, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then there are certain things that need to be met, and they turn into a giant corporation, and then, but we still want to think of them as, like, that company that they were when they started. And when they become these giant corporations, that's not the things about them change.
No, hang on, step back. You don't get to the point of being a big corporation without
exploiting.
Yeah. It's the same thing with billionaires. You don't get to that point without doing the things in the first place.
Yeah, but I still feel like people look at certain companies in the way that they once thought that they were, or want to believe
they got nostalgia vision for the company they grew up with.
Of course they do. Of course we do. Like, but then you take a step back, they do something that then shows you, oh, wait a second, they've been doing this thing.
Yeah.
But I am now, like, actually seeing it and not seeing what I wanted to believe them to be. or, when it turns out that they are a joint corporation and they're doing giant corporation things, like you said. So it's tough, and it's tough to see that happen, and it's just another thing. It's another thing where it's really becoming apparent.
Personally, I am rebasing the core of myself from Pokemon to what I want the world to look like in the future, and I think that making sure people's cores are not tied to intellectual properties is maybe a good part of the future.
We're going to become a generalized video game podcast now. And
Like I said, I'm not done with Pokemon.
okay, I have two more thoughts. The first thought is I'm not surprised at the sale at all. I think that the big winner here is John Hankey. He gets to probably buy a new yacht. All of these executives get a big payday, and now he doesn't have to pay hundreds of people a salary to work on a game that he didn't really care about.
And he doesn't have to have so many people mad at him for choices that the Pokemon Company had to... Okay.
And I think, going into my second point, I think that there is probably exhaustion from working with the Pokemon Company. And again, I'm not saying the Pokemon Company is a bad guy, but I believe that just like any big corporation who is protective of their brand, I'm sure they're very hard to work with. And I'm sure the cultural differences between how Japanese companies run and American companies run is a struggle. And I want to give another example, which we've brought up on the show. I used to know the person who ran the social media accounts for Pokemon X amount of years ago. And from what I was told, that the Pokemon Company in Japan, when I say the Pokemon Company, I mean Japan. The Pokemon Company International is the US one, but they're not technically in charge of a lot of stuff. They also have to report to the Pokemon Company. Anytime that they wanted to make a tweet, any tweet, the Pokemon Company would have to look at it. And for a long time, the Pokemon Company was anti-emoji. They did not want the social media manager to use emojis. And when I'm saying this, for anyone who is new or maybe has not heard this story before, think about a Japanese corporation nitpicking a tweet, every tweet that you have to do before you can hit publish. Do you think they don't have a say in Pokemon Go? Do you think that they are not more critical of that video game if they are so critical of every single English tweet going out? I promise you that they are as guilty as Niantic when it comes to $2 tickets or the limit of remote raid passes or egg hatch rates or whatever you want to believe that Niantic has done bad. The Pokemon Company has co-signed whatever thing that they have done. I don't remember my second point.
I think that was the second point.
I think one thing that will be interesting and will kind of show some truth to that will be how much the game does, if the game does stay similar to how it is, even though it's switched hands, even though it switched hands to Scopely, if the game does stay quite similar, at least at first or for a while, to like how it currently is, that will kind of potentially show the amount of input that Pokemon Go or that the Pokemon Company may have in the game. Because if it switches developers and yet the game stays like the same way that it was when it was with Niantic, you have to assume that it shows how much pull comes from a third party.
Would you call it a third party when it's their
It's their property,
IP, but
it's their intellectual property.
But when it's not their like game, developed game.
So I do wonder, Niantic, as in John Hankey was, we're sick of this. We don't want to deal with Pokemon. We'll take the payday. We want to focus on this. And that's fine. Like, if that's what you want to do, you're not into video games, make your sale, Mr. King, John Hankey. But whatever Pokemon puts their hands into, it's never straightforward. And again, that goes back to the Pokemon Sleep thing. Like, what was Niantic working on for then Pokemon to say, hey, stop what you're doing. We have this new device. We have this new game. We need you to work on something, and you got to stop.
I mean, they were given a lot of heads up for that.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, Pokemon Sleep was only being made for like 6 years. But that's not going to be the last game. There will be more games, and they will use Pokemon Go to advertise said games. And they will use the TCG to advertise Pokemon Go, and they will use Pokemon Champions to advertise Pokemon Go, and Pokemon Go will advertise Pokemon Champions. Like, there will be a lot of things that Scopely now has to deal with that I'm sure Niantic was very sick of dealing with. And they always want to say, like, we love our partners at the Pokemon Company, and I'm sure you do. But I've worked with a ton of corporations. Pokemon, not Pokemon, Niantic, not Niantic, and sometimes working with companies is just hard because everyone wants their own thing. So I'm sure we'll talk more about this in the future, but here is your hour conversation about how I gave you 2 good things that I think. Otherwise, I stand by everything I said 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that, like, Scopely is very predatory, and at the bare minimum, I expect things to get more expensive, not less expensive. If they lift the remote raid limit, I don't expect remote raids to go back to 99 cents, is what I'm saying. There's nothing is going to get cheaper, is what I'm saying.
Well, my prediction would be that even if things seem like they get better initially, even if things seem like they get less expensive initially, I think that in the long term it will get worse.
Yes. And best case scenario, Scopely listens to the Pokemon Company more, and that partnership is healthier than... I have no reason to believe that the relationship was unhealthy with Niantic, but Niantic was not a video game maker. Yep. And so...
And the devs seem real happy to be going to a video game maker.
Yeah, I follow a couple Niantic people on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on whatever, and they seem happy. And I hope that's true. Again, I never want to come on the show to defend Niantic because to me, Niantic is just a giant corporation. And sometimes they pay for my flight and sometimes they don't. And the people who have paid for my flight in the past don't even work there anymore. They've moved on. So I just deal with a different person instead. And that's how it comes. They're just business deals. The employees at Niantic are not my friends. They are people I work with. They don't pay for me to say good things about them on this podcast. They paid for me to go to Indonesia, and I said bad things. But yeah. Well, boy, you guys get a lot of bonus stuff. We got about 20 more minutes. 20. Well, we're yappers. On my schedule, I have 20 minutes, but it might be 25, might be 30 minutes. We have a little bit more bonus, so if you still want to listen to us talk, patreon.com/PKMNcast. You can get, for $5, you can get pretty much 20 to 30 minutes every single episode going forward. It's been working really great. We do have a free trial, which will get you this episode and past episodes. We have free trial on both Apple and Patreon if you want more stuff. It also removes the ads of the episode. So you don't have to listen to pre-rolls or anything like that. Niantic does not pay my bills. You guys pay my bills. So so thank you for that. But if you want more content, it'll be after the break music. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Bobby. This has been another episode of the Pokemon Podcast, and we are...
super effective.
Super just thinking about that fish playing Pokemon. Effective.
We should buy a fish and name him Claude.
Oh no.
Because it was before. Would you get out of here? This is the $5 content you're getting. And so I'm going to do a stream either this week or next week because I have all these